Guys, now part number 4. Okay, so part number 4, I'd like to think about the last video that I did about the 5 proof of the 5 elements proving the God's creation or God existence. I was mentioning about DNA, okay? And in that video, I was explaining that, between humans, actually we're sharing part of the genetic code, we're sharing 99.9% of the genetic code, and we all have that in common. Wherever you are. If you're in Australia, if you are in South America, you are in Europe, you are in Africa, you are in North America, we all 99.9% genetic code in common. So only 1.1% is separating us. Okay. The other part that are actually separating us will be the soul of who you are, right? But it proves that there's no superiority between or differences, significant differences between races. There's nothing that is proving that. But this is why this part is really interesting, because now we're going to talk about eugenics. So as I was saying in part number 3, I was saying that the view of social Darwinism was leading to something extremely dark, to something that would be triggering a set of events that would be changing fundamentally, the human society for a long period of time. But it was, to me, it could be identified as a dark age for humanity. When we're thinking that we can kill my brother or my sister because they are different, this is dark age of humanity. If we believe that we are so great that we have the right to kill, to torture other human beings, this is what animals do, without remorse. If they have to kill a competitor, they do it because of the sense of competition. But we are 8 billion on this planet, and it's like there's no place for one another on the planet. We have to stomp on others. We have to kill each other in order to exist. It's really the definition of dark age for the humanity, in my perspective. Okay, so now part number 4, that's what I was almost alluding to my conclusion, but my conclusion will be touching these elements. But anyway, yes, so let me share my screen. So part number 4, eugenics and its impacts in the 20th century. Okay, eugenics is really dark, and you will see why. Okay, so now it is evident that a narrative is being presented to us. The ancient origins of racism, the colonial era, and the codification of racism, the emergence now of pseudoscientific based racism, and the dark aspect of it. And the dark aspect of it are really eugenics and state-sanctioned discrimination. The will of a state to discriminate others, to treat people like on the top of the food chain and the others at the bottom of the food chain. And this is really the worst of the worst, because it means that the society is being imprinted with a vision provided by politics, by the political figures, using false information to push a narrative. Okay? So this is, I suppose I will be humbly describing eugenics to illustrate, to use eugenics and attempting to illustrate how it was possible to connect it to the Holocaust caused by the Nazis, and further translate into current form of racism and also mass murders that we've seen in the 20th century and throughout the 19th century. Okay. To be honest with you, I'm not really enthusiastic about discussing that matter. I'm of the opinion that humanity is a brotherhood and that we should be regarded others with equal respect, empathy, friendship, and we all have something in common. This magnificent blue planet. If we were to lose that, it would be terrible. If we were to lose, the beautiful environment and rich and diverse environment we have, it would be extremely sad. Now, eugenics. Eugenics has been largely rejected when considering more than just the way in which words are used. Okay? However, its views and its impact have been tremendously profound. And as previously stated, I don't take any pleasure of discussing that subject because that subject is really, really dark in my view. However, it is crucial to address this in order to gain a deeper understanding of what racism is today, not yesterday, because in the past it was different. But you can see the intersection, okay? You can already see the intersection of slavery, the intersection of colonialism was what? Money was the only play at work. It was the accumulation of wealth. People were eager to kill another, torture another for money, for money for wealth accumulation. This is really bad. Now, what is eugenics? Now, eugenics has been largely discredited, but it was attempting to enhance the human population through selective breeding. So basically, if you feel yourself as superior, you will not breed with another person from an inferior race. So basically, it was providing some kind of a selection of what is superior and what is inferior in the races kind of delineation. Okay. Now, it is founded on the same flawed logic as scientific based racism. Like you take Darwin's theories, you twist it to make a narrative that will be justifying something. Okay. So now if we go a little bit further down the rabbit hole, it would be possible to influence the genetic composition, changing potentially the DNA of future generation by promoting reproduction amongst individuals who are considered fit, racially superior, and excluding those who are considered unfit, racially inferior. In a sense, the fundamental principle of eugenics advocate for the superiority of specific races, the inheritance of characteristics, and selective breeding, as I was saying before. Naturally, this concept resulted in catastrophic repercussions for individuals and communities, as well as widespread discrimination and human rights violations. The Nazi regime is actually implemented these ideas and was exemplified by the Jewish Holocaust and the massive murders of other unfit populations. As previously stated, I take no pleasure whatsoever of discussing that matter, that subject. However, it has resulted in severe repercussions for the human society and continue to have an impact to this day. To this day, the notion of today's racism is based on these notions, even though they are entirely false. Entirely false. There's nothing that creates some base on which you can validate eugenics, social Darwinism, and the hierarchy of races. But regrettably, this is the situation. The repercussions of proto-racism, the creation of notion of separation between civilization and barbarism, modern racism with framework for racism and discrimination, eugenics, and social Darwinism are still being felt in the structures and attitudes of our society today. Now, examples include the perpetuation of stereotypes against specific human groups, the impact on healthcare, genomics, and genetic engineering, as well as discrimination and inequality. Although eugenics and social Darwinism have been largely rejected in all societies, but this is still in the mindset. This is still in the brain. The underlying principle continue to be present in the matter in which certain human groups are treated, perceived, or even treated, differently from others. I will elaborate on this on my conclusion, but I will provide an example of what happened in France to explain what will be the ramifications of these notion of discrimination, pointing the fingers to certain communities and treating them differently with disdain, and more than disdain, sometimes even exclusion. I don't care about this. I'm doing this video because I want to share a vision that is really the fact that I consider this planet and all brothers and sisters as part of the human family. We will never develop the true capacity for greater good for the entire human species if we persevere on this path. This path is the path of Satan. It's the path of something extremely bad that might happen over time, that might generate into something where communities will not be able to live with one another anymore. And this is really what could be our future if we don't pay attention. Okay. Now, part number 5, I will provide an example on how France has been subjected to such ideologies and is currently paying the price for it. So as bad as you can be, as bad as you will have the reward. The reward will be extremely bitter, will not be pleasant, will not be sweet as a milk and honey. It will be extremely bitter, extremely not pleasant to swallow, none whatsoever. When you take a medication, is that really pleasant? When you take a medication, extremely bitter. You take it because you know you're gonna feel better because you have a cold, you have something, you have a condition, so you take medication. But if the medication is not pleasant, you don't take pleasure in it, right? And that's the same. When you treat, it's about action and reaction. So you take people, in a bad way, it will come back as a boomerang with 1,000 times the effect. And this is what we're going to discuss about, in part number 5.